come to session number 6, which is on cost management. If you do any project and you have to invest in that project, then it must return a value. So, for example, and that value must exceed, that investment. If, for example, that investment was put in a bank. So, let's say you have 100 CDs and you're investing this. Then you must get a return on this. And this return must be more than if you had put that 100 CDs in a savings account or an investment account, for example. This means that when you start any project, there must be well-laid plans to manage the costs so that they don't exceed the expectations and so that the project can return value for you. In this session, therefore, we would look at the role of cost management in project delivery. We will discuss the sort of costs that are involved in an IT project and how to estimate these costs. The standard way of evaluating the economic benefit of any project is to carry out a cost-benefit analysis. This will normally consist of 2 basic steps: identifying and estimating all of the costs and benefits associated with the project, and 2, expressing these costs and benefits in a common unit to allow for an evaluation. So, what are the learning outcomes? You need to understand the place of cost management within project management. Outline a process for cost estimation. Describe the Kokomo Tool and other methods for cost estimation. Kokomo actually stands for Constructive Cost Model. And then explain the use of end value management for cost control. For any software, there are a number of costs associated with it. This includes the direct costs for developing and maintaining the software, indirect costs, and operating costs. Direct costs include creating and updating the software requirements, specification and design, carrying out the coding and testing, ensuring software quality, for example, reviews and inspections, software maintenance, purchasing bought-in software artifacts, and project costs. So these are all costs that are directly related to the project software. Indirect costs could include setup costs, and they are related to costs involved in putting the system into place. Things such as the cost of new hardware and ancillary equipment, as well as cost for file conversion, office space, communications, and collaboration platforms are all forms of indirect costs. Operating costs, on the other hand, are the operating platform, hardware and system software, software costs for the developed software, installation upgrade costs, training costs, user costs, for example, data entry, quality costs, for example, business costs due to software errors. So these are all costs associated with running the new system. Now, benefits. We said at the beginning, earlier on, that if you invest in any project, it's because you are expecting some benefits. Benefits can be quite difficult to quantify, sometimes, especially in monetary terms, if you have been able to identify them. That is, even if you're able to identify them. We can classify benefits in 3 major ways. Direct benefits. This will come directly from operating the new system, e.g., increased revenue generation. Accessible indirect benefits. These are secondary benefits such as increased accuracy of the system, e.g., through a better user interface. And of course, there will be intangible benefits. These are generally longer-term benefits that are generally more difficult to quantify, e.g., enhanced job interest, reduced staff turnover, leading to lower recruitment costs, for example. Any project that shows excess benefits over costs is something that is clearly worth undertaking. We can relate costs between projects and users. You have a project, and then you have the development and maintenance costs, which we said can be direct or indirect. And then to the software users, development funding, operating costs, etc. So this will relate directly to the project cost. As a project manager, you must manage a number of things. First, you must produce credible plans showing the funding requirements. So if you are working for a company and you are supposed to, or you come up with a project plan, you must also show how this is going to be funding, or what funding is required, and it must be credible. You need to ensure that stakeholders are not surprised with major changes to plans or costs. That you start a project and all of a sudden you come and say, oh, no, the cost of this thing has increased. It's not this. No, you shouldn't do that. You need to what? Keep stakeholders informed of progress at regular intervals. And you let your stakeholders know of any difficulties as early as is possible. A project manager must ensure financial commitments by various stakeholders are clearly stated, that appropriate measures for dealing with non-payment are present. Where payments depend on deliverables, those deliverables must be well defined with responsibility and procedure for approving them that ensure that those are clearly stated. What are the cost management processes? This involves cost estimation, cost budgeting, and cost control. How does your cost management fit into the project processes? So you have your feasibility study, where you make a business case. You have a requirement scope, technology considerations. Then you have software process monitoring, where you do your benchmarking. Then you planning and funding and budget, contract service negotiations. This is where you do your cost estimation and cost budgeting. And then when you do your project execution, that is where you undertake your cost control. Because here, you must make sure that you keep costs in check. There are three main steps involved in cost estimation. First, software design, that you think about software size. Then, work breakdown structure, where you have to look at software tasks and software effort, and cost breakdown structure, which would involve software cost at each step. Now, how do you estimate the software? How do you measure the software size? You can do this by either code size or some other aspect that is related to the required functionality. But what do you mean by code size? When you do software, you estimate software size using code size, you can do this by counting the lines of code. And there are different ways of counting the lines. For example, the source lines of code, in which you count only the source lines that are delivered. Or you can count the delivery source instructions. So if there's an if-else statement, that should count as one slug, that's source line of code. But there are a number of problems arising from using code size. If you're comparing or aggregating different programming languages, then that could pose a problem. And then new software development methods, for example, use of models, automatic code generation, and software reuse could also pose problems. Question is, why should this pose problems? Can you think about them? We can also estimate software size based on functionality. So we can look at the types of functionality and then what gets counted. So function points, so inputs, outputs, files, and inquiries, for example. Object points or application points, screens, reports, modules. Use case points, which would involve use cases, for example. Effort and productivity. The units for effort can be measured in person hours, person weeks, person months, or person years. What do this mean? Productive time. You have to allow for other things, for example, holidays, weekends, lunch, sick days, training, traveling time, etc. Overheads. How are management and administrative tasks accounted for? The People, when they work, their productivity can vary. Some people are more productive than others. Some people are experts in a task and tend to be more productive than novices. So if you're an expert, you'll be more productive than if you're a novice. And then people have different levels of sickness and absenteeism. So you depend on people and you schedule some time for them to do the work, but then the person is absent due to sickness. And then, of course, some tasks may be more difficult than others, and therefore they require more time to perform. We may try to use multiple categories to cater for different skill levels and different tasks. You can even get more complexity as a result of this economy of scale. For example, large projects will require more communication and more organization. However, component-based development could require less of this. One way to go about this is to use expert opinion or use a WBS-based costing or activity-based costing or algorithmic approaches. So, once you have an effort, then converting that into cost is a matter of knowing the standard cost. However, there are a few things to take note of. People are on different pay scales. For example, project manager, programmer, systems architect, etc. They are all on different pay scales. So the rates for the same job can vary due to industry or location. New recruits will require money to be spent on support and training. If you assume the more expensive workers are the more productive, then there's some offset that you can achieve here. There are a number of techniques that are available for software cost estimation. There are the parametric models or parametric-based models, expert-based models, learning-oriented, dynamics, regression-based, and the composite Bayesian models. And examples of each of them are given in the slide. And you may want to read up on them, on each of them, so you have a rough idea of what each one states. So there's a parametric model, which is a Kokomo 81, but then let's just briefly discuss the wideband Delphi model. It's an expertise-based cost estimation model which was introduced by Barry Boehm in 1970s. It's iterative in nature. The way it works is that you gather a group of experts, and each expert gives their estimates of the cost. The results are then tabulated. The experts then discuss the tabulated results, and the experts again then give their estimates based on the discussions they've had. So this goes on until there's a convergence of views on the estimated value. The activity-based costing or the WBS costing, in this one, WBS-based costing. In each activity is in the WBS is individually costed. So you then do a bottom-up technique starting from the lowest levels of the WBS and then summing this up. You can aggregate using two types of WBS, product WBS or process WBS. The product one is useful for aggregating according to different product modules. The process WBS is for aggregating according to the type of processes. For example, aggregating by process such as testing or coding. The constructive cost model or the Kokomo Tool is a parametric or algorithmic model, again developed by Boehm in 1981 for the waterfall model. The Kokomo Tool came about in 2000, and it was seen as an evolutionary incremental and spiral models. The Kokomo Tool also caters for very high-level languages, commercial off-the-shelf cost, software, and reuse through various extension models. So it's something that you need to read about to understand what this is. You may not require to use it now, but at least be aware of it. So when you go into industry, you know what models are available, and then you have an idea how to use them. There are three basic models, and the choice of the model depends on the development stage in which you are for the Kokomo Tool. Application composition, this is for software developed using prototyping. Usually this is done in the early stages of software development and uses application points. Or you can use the early design, which is useful at the early stages when little is known about the system at all. And this is based on the, what do you call it, source lines of code. Or you can have the post architecture, which is used during the actual development and maintenance of the software. There are a number of tools also that are there. Yeah. So we've mentioned some of them. The Kokomo Tool, the CoStar, the Cost Modeler, the Cost Expert, Cost Knowledge Plan, Price S, CA, Slim, Soft Cost. So these are all various forms of tools. It's important or it's useful to be able to describe at least two of these. Now, what Capers Jones in 2005 did say something about cost estimation tools, that commercial software estimating tools are far from perfect and they can be wrong too. But automated estimates often outperform human estimates in terms of accuracy and always in terms of speed and cost effectiveness. However, no method of estimation is totally error-free. The current best practice for software cost estimation is to use a combination of software cost estimating tools coupled with software project management tools under the careful guidance of experienced software project managers and estimating specialists. So, what it's trying to say here is that, yes, when you are involved in a project, in developing a software, for example, as you would be, you will require to estimate the cost. Right? You will be required to estimate the cost. And there are tools for doing this. But be aware that these tools are far from perfect and that there's no method which is error-free. So you need to carefully combine these methods. And at the end of it, it's the experience of the software project managers and specialists that would help you arrive at a truer picture. I stated at the very beginning of the course that many IT projects, run over budget. This is because of the problems associated with estimating the costs. How do you do cost measurement? There are some education methods with organizations. You can use historical data, you can use calibration methods, or you can use some feedback. So, this brings us sort of to the end of cost management. Would sort of seeing how to do cost estimation. You need to establish a software size by counting the lines of code, effort, the productivity rates, how to calculate software costs, using some tools, cost budgeting, and then cost control. We haven't touched too much on those, but I will urge you to read up on them. Of course, there is other cost estimation methods, the wideband, Delphi, W-based costing, the Kokomo, and then cost control, the end value management, which you need to read up on again. It's information on that is the PMBOK book, the Project Management Book of Knowledge. You will find information on that. And this book, the software copy is available to you. Thank you.